Okay, so welcome to the first live hangout. Tonight we'll be starting talking about beer and the craft brewing culture, and where it goes from there, nobody really knows. So, by way of introduction, I'm Jason Jones from the Skeptic Smash Talk podcast. Skeptic Smash Talk is a weekly podcast based on science, religion, and politics. And with me, we have Christian. Christian, tell us all about yourself.
I'm Christian Hood. I'm from Swan Brewing. We're a startup brewery in Central Florida. We're just getting ourselves off the ground, so look forward to us.
Excellent. And then we've got J Brew. J Brew, tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, Jay Brew from the Hops News podcast. We'd like to be a little bit more regular than what we are right now, as probably most men our age. But just kind of kick it around, and we do a podcast based off the beer culture. Just kind of exploring the ideas and the events and everything that goes on with beer and the things that make the beer culture in the United States right now a huge movement, if you will. So, yeah, we have a good time. We drink beer. We have some interviews with some people that own breweries that work in the beer industry, and also the organizations that they impact through their good deeds. So it's always a good time. Like I said, we're not really any regular schedule or anything like that, but we've got a few episodes out and working on a few more. It's great to be here, and anytime we're talking or drinking beer is always good.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, Christian, let's go back a few years. I think we've never physically met, but we met online about 10 years ago, a little bit more, maybe 11, 12 years ago on a brewing forum. And so you've gone from homebrew up to, very soon turning the key on your own brewery. Do you want to sort of talk about that journey, that 10 or 12 years journey?
Yeah, it's one of those, you always dream of it. Once you get hooked onto brewing enough to where you're making beer and you're making beer consistently, commercial great quality or even better, and you're going to the store and you're buying a six-pack for $10, $12 a six-pack, going, why am I buying this? I'm making better beer than this at home, and here comes the train. You gotta love
it. Can't love live video any better than this, can you?
But it gets back to, why am I buying this when I'm making beer this good at home? And so, it was one of those, well, I should start a brewery. If I'm making beer that's good, I should start a brewery. And then you realize how much money it takes, and that kind of staggers you. But you never give up that dream, because every time you drop, a certain number of dollars on a six-pack, you're going, and people are clamoring for it, people are going crazy for it. You're just sitting there going, well, I wish they could have what I have on draft right now.
Yeah. So, J Brew, did you ever do craft brew, or are you entering from a different angle?
Yeah, that's so I think, like most people that enjoy a good beer, we've all taken our turn, whether it's hooch in the barracks or maybe some sort of extract mixture or something like that. I think we all take a spin at it and give it a try. And I've definitely done that. I've never had any real success with it. But I do work for a local brewery here in town, and kind of come at it from that. I mean, we do some good things at our brewery, involvement with the community and all that stuff. But I leave the brewing up to the guys that know how to brew. I enjoy their beverage that they produce, and I make sure our money's flowing in the right direction, and it turns out to be a great working relationship.
Fair enough. So you made an interesting point. So on your podcast, and the last podcast that I heard, and I think there might be another one after that, you were talking to a brewery that was started by a veteran. Actually, before the guy come up with his business plan while he was in the field in Afghanistan, doing this thing over there. So the community engagement that they were doing and that you were doing, do you just want to sort of speak on that just quickly?
Yeah, 14 Star Brewing up there in Vermont. It seems to be there's a lot of veterans that seem to kind of end up going in the brewery direction, which is great because it kind of gives them their outlook or outlet to be creative. And you get veterans together and they've got a great ambition and great motivation. And what 14 Star is doing up there is really providing and giving back to the veteran community. Um, and as a veteran, and Jason, I believe you're a veteran as well.
Yeah,
I kind of feel that it's even my part, and I'm sure that those guys up there kind of feel the same way. I feel like it's a big part of me needs to share my success and perpetuate that for other veterans. And it's kind of interesting that you brought that up, because where I was at this most of the weekend to kind of push back our start time was with an organization here in the United States called Project Healing Waters. And what that organization does is approach healing from wounded veterans through fly fishing. So was down there learning about how to bring disabled veterans to the water and have a fly fishing experience to help in their healing process. So we were learning about adaptive fly fishing techniques, how you can fly fish with one hand, and how you can tie flies with one hand, and all of that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think that it's great, and like I said, I think that veterans generally try to do that. If they see themselves as successful, they try to do things with other veteran groups to perpetuate that. So, yeah, those guys at 14 Star in Vermont, I mean, that's definitely a special group up there. And if I ever make it up that way, it'll be a stop on the list for sure.
definitely, definitely. As a frustrated fly fisherman myself, I can't imagine trying to just fish with one hand or one arm, let alone tie flies and things like that. So more power to them. It's hard to know where to go from that one. Actually, it's a bit of a good touching story, that one. But Christian, so you were saying earlier you've not launched yet, but you've actually already got some brand recognition going in the local area.
Yeah, it's all through just local social media stuff like that. Reaching out. One of my partners actually sets up at the farmers market and sells home brewing supplies at the farmers market. But it was funny even talking to him. He was going, for the longest time, people would be like, "Oh, well, what are you selling? What are you this? What are you that?" It's gotten to the point now that whenever I wear like a shirt like this one, people are going, "So when you guys launching? I'm following you on Facebook." It's you walk around town with it, and it's not celebrity status, but it is. People are recognizing and going, "I know you guys are coming. When is it happening? We can't wait." And that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I remember we were talking about earlier today, actually, when I had my pizza shop. As I was putting that together, people knew that we were opening a shop. We had it like the windows were boarded up and nobody could see in. But for must have been 3 months as we were fitting the premises out, people were really wanting to know what was going on there, and that the crowd and the expectation build up from that was phenomenal. Just before they knew what was coming, So it'll be pretty interesting once they, So it's not just you're opening a restaurant as well, proper tap bar, beer, food, all that sort of stuff.
We're going to have a tasting room with the beer that we're making. And we actually it was banned in downtown, and we're opening up in the downtown of our area. Food trucks are banned in the downtown area in our market. We actually were able to get it passed through city ordinance, a special exemption for us to have food trucks.
Wow.
We asked, we told them that, really this area needs a thing for millennials. We've got, several really good high quality colleges in this town. But what the problem is the kids graduate, they start making money, and they go somewhere else for something to do. We really needed it in this town, needed something for millennials. If the city wasn't going to or willing to cooperate with that and make special exemptions for that, they could continue to watch these graduates leave town and take their money elsewhere. So it was getting the city council members on board with it, getting them to realize the big picture of things. Once they did, the wheels started turning very quickly.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to open up the market itself for not just other brew houses, but other street food vendors? Because I mean, that's a big part of the scene in a lot of cities in the US. It's not so big in the UK, mainly because of the weather, but into Europe, the street food scenes are pretty big there. But are you saying it's not so much in your area?
Well, no, they're banned in downtown in our area, and I get it why. I mean, lease on a brick and mortar costs a lot of money. And, if you own a pizza place, do you want a pizza truck that has very little investment other than the cost of the food truck pulling up right outside and selling pizzas for 1/5 of your price? I get it. These guys have that with the brick and mortars have a substantial investment, and I get it. So, it was a lot, one of the areas we were in the downtown district. The downtown district has, on the map, a certain size zone. And, it was us pointing out to the city, look, there's none of these brick and mortars restaurants next to where we're opening. So, why block us, from having a food truck? It's vital for the brewery. We don't want to do food and beer. We were afraid that we couldn't do both well. We could do beer well. We know we can do beer well. None of us know food. So, to step into it and distract ourselves if we were going to get into the food market of it, it's just another level and a way to fail. And we didn't want to step into it and have anything to do with it.
Yeah, it's a good idea too. And coming from that background, it's really, really easy to fuck up a restaurant. You do that bad, and you'll lose everybody. So yeah, it's very important. So J Brew, just on the culture of craft brewing in the US. So last time I was there, it was 10 years ago, and I wouldn't say that it was just beginning to shine, but it was shining, and probably sitting at about 70% of its potential back then. Is it moving forward, or is there any sort of chance that it's going to slip back to the old days of brewing? And it looks, we've just been joined by Bob and two little people.
There looks like there's one half of the Bob and Kate show.
Yeah. Give us a wave, Bob. You're live. No, he's muted out. Anyway, so I was saying, J Brew, the culture in the US, the micro beer culture, how's that sort of grown over the last 10 years?
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect of the craft beer boom, I guess you can call it, here in the United States, because there are so many new breweries entering the marketplace right now. But I think that we're reaching a point where there's such a selection on the shelf that we will start to see people that try to enter and have a tough time getting attraction. If you go into most of our supermarkets here, you can walk into the beer section and see literally hundreds of feet of cold shelf space for beer. And we're already seeing the overwhelmed consumer. I use it as an opportunity myself, from our brewery to really make an impact on that consumer that's having a tough time deciding which beer it is. But I think that we're in a point where one of our metropolitan areas here in North Carolina is literally going to see in excess of 40 new breweries in the next 12 months.
Wow,
And
that's huge, isn't it?
that's overwhelming, man. And if we remember back not too many years ago here in the U.S., car dealerships were the same way. And you just get to a point sooner or later that people that thought they could make it or had the business plan that was making it prior to will start to be squeezed out, because it does take a certain amount of revenue to break even in any business, not just beer. But it's definitely interesting, and I hope that somehow the new breweries entering and the existing ones that's been there figure out the business model to be able to coexist. But I don't know that if the appetite for the consumer will maintain it.
Yeah.
And only time will tell. But I think we're at a very unique time in this growth, and that we will see some changes, for good or bad. I don't know yet, but I think that it's definitely an interesting time, and people need to stay on their toes and be able to react to the changing times, because it's almost unbelievable, the growth that we've seen here.
Yeah. So there was a documentary I remember seeing a little while ago. It was called Beer Wars. And basically, they talked on the issues. It was mainly the big sort of, I can't remember all the big breweries there. You've got Coors. Is it Molson?
Obviously, the Anheuser-Busch's and the Coors and the Millers, and even some of the bigger craft beer brands. Sam Adams, I guess, is still considered craft. Stone, all of those guys, and we're seeing. I mean, it's not new news, but I mean, we're seeing Stone that's making huge leaps and bounds in expansion. Coming all the way over to East Coast in Virginia, going all the way overseas into Berlin. Making these huge advancements, but then announcing layoffs in their workforce.
Yeah.
So we're already at a point in our time in craft beer, and what we've seen as the growth over the past couple of years is starting to slow. So it's already having its effects on other breweries that we look at, and as a smaller brewery we kind of admire, but I think we just need to be careful, because we're gonna start pushing ourselves out of the little bit of space that's growing right now. But I think that as long as breweries are doing the good things and in business for good and providing for their communities, breweries need to be very, very mindful that being a brewery isn't about beer.
Right. Yeah.
It's not about beer at all. And just as well as I do, Jason, those breweries over in Europe, those breweries are not about beer.
Oh God, no.
It's about
and you and I talked about one in I want to say Berlin, but I don't think it is. There was one recently where the brewery was inside a small village, and rather than bring the trucks into the village to ship the beer out to be packaged, they put a multiple mile long pipe from the brewery out to the bottling plant, just so they could keep the brewery in. It was in Belgium, sorry, so they can keep the brewery in the little village, keep the tourism coming into the village, but still be able to put that product out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I say that bringing a brewery isn't about beer. I think being a successful brewery, it needs to be more than just beer.
It does. It does. And here's the thing, it depends on your business model. It really does. We have no desire at this point, and it's written into our business plan, of distribution. And where you were talking about shelf space, you look at countries like Germany, there's neighborhood breweries. They are not on shelves. You'll never find them outside of their neighborhood. If you can capture your community, price point yourself correctly, and you can be successful as long as you can capture your community. And that's what we're looking to do. If we ever step into the distribution realms, that's extra capital outside of our original business plan.
Yep. And that, like, yeah, that just goes along with my my philosophy is to be successful nowadays. You have to be part of the community, and being a part of the community means not just being an outlet or not being just a tap room, but literally, how do we make our community better? How can I come to work today and tomorrow leave our community a better space? Because if a brewery does that, I will just about guarantee success. But you have to stick to your word, and you have to say it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be very expensive to give back and provide for our community. But if you're doing that, or if a brewery is doing that, then it's just, to me, that's where the community wants to go and get their beer. And I'll take it a step further to say you could make mediocre beer, but if your strength in your community and giving back to your community is enough, you'll survive. And I've seen it. I've been to breweries that beer is, the beer's all right. It's nothing to be excited about, but what they do for their community keeps their community interested. So it's definitely an interesting business model that everybody has their own thing. But I will say that distribution, I don't care how big you are or how small you are, it's very expensive.
Yeah,
Very, very expensive.
Just on distribution, just for people who don't know or are outside of the industry or outside of the US. So in the UK or in Australia, if I was in a brewery in one part of the country and I wanted my beer, to be sold into another part of the country, I could literally just put it in the back of a truck and ship it up there to the retailer or the distributor. That's not the way it works in the US, I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
Go
ahead.
in the U.S., it's a 3-tier system in most states, to where the brewery is the manufacturer, they produce the beer, and then they have to sell it to a distributor. The distributor then marks it up. The standard is around 30%. And then the distributor drives it around, takes it to their warehouse, stores it, drives it around town, delivers it to markets. Retailers who mark it up another 30%, and then it finally hits the consumer. So, it's been marked up twice by the time the consumer actually gets to sample that product.
Yeah. You got anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's largely dependent on location. In North Carolina, we do have some self-distribution laws that allow breweries to distribute themselves, but they're limited. So in North Carolina, I think you can do 35,000 barrels of beer and still distribute yourself, or do self-distribution where you don't have to go through a distributor. We've seen some breweries here that have started to butt up against that number and have had to pull out of distribution areas because they're getting really close. Because literally, if you reach that number, you cannot produce any more beer that year. So it's very interesting. Prohibition laws here in the United States was put in for very valid reasons. And we come out of prohibition and they put in even more regulations that we have to play by. And, that's why you have huge beer companies like Anheuser-Busch that has, arguably the largest distribution network in the world for beer. So it definitely makes for a challenge. And like I said, a lot of it does depend on what the business model is for the individual breweries, but you just have to, the brewers obviously know the laws going into it, but they just have to be very well aware that it's not an easy game. And anytime you're looking for shelf space, you're going to get up against behemoths in the industry that have the money, that have the power to play that game. So it makes for an interesting game, and it makes for interesting relationships. We're pretty fortunate at our brewery that we do have a distribution partner that does distribution for us. So it's great. It's a great relationship for us, but it's not what every brewery strives to do. And it really just depends on what your game is. But it it makes it very expensive. I don't care how big you are or how small you are. Like Christian was saying, everybody wants a slice of it, and literally the guy that's making it is getting the smallest slice. So,
and unless you're selling the majority of your stuff out of a tasting room, and that's once again that's where if you're a brewery with a tasting room and you can you're selling your stuff at a retail level, so you're producing at manufacturer cost, but you're selling it at a retail level. So if you can really involve your community, get your community to back you, support your place, come into your place, you can produce the product at manufacturer cost, but sell it at a retail level.
Yep, for sure. And that's a great, at this time, as crowded as the spaces are, the shelves are, that's a great business model to have. And it's very interesting how that works. I mean, you go to some great breweries that are basically family run that are doing awesome, making a great living for their family and able to kill it in the community. And that's what they want to do. So yeah, without a doubt, there's definitely that business model that's out there that could be very successful.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a bubble. I think the bubble is a long way away. I really do. Because you look at cities like San Diego, they've got, I think, 120 operating breweries in San Diego right now that are successful, and they've been operating now for a few years. And so you look at it, the communities will support it. Looking at the in market research, the more craft breweries in an area actually increases your business, because a craft beer drinker tends to want to hop. From my own market research, they'll hit a place, they'll drink some beers, then they want to hop to the next. And so the more that is in that area, it seems like they actually seem to support each other. The more you have, the area where I have the biggest concern, where and I talk about a bubble, it's not the number of craft breweries, it's the number of farms. When do we actually, and you're seeing it with hops and how hops are starting to get harder and harder to secure. At what point is barley going to be a problem?
Yep.
That's where you're going to see your bubble.
Yep. Yeah. I don't, the bubble, I mean, obviously every industry, I don't care if you're the banking industry or if you're making houses or you're building automobiles, business cycle affects everybody. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, when we start to see retraction in the beer industry. I don't know when that'll be. I've got some good guesses, and they're basically opinions, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that people have to consider. And there's, as fragile as the supply chain is for the beer industry right now, because it does take farming to make it happen, and any droughts or anything like that obviously affects everybody in that supply chain. But
yeah, we had that problem in Australia just before I left in sort of it started in, say, 2006, 2007. Drought started happening. Yep. All of a sudden, I was literally a 2-mile drive away from a great malt house where I could get just about everything that I needed for next to nothing, to having to buy 1, 2, 3 kilogram bags out of Asia. So we're getting this really high sugar yield barley that had no flavor at all to it. The beer that will, as a home brewer, we were making beer that was starting to taste like the, Foster's and the VB and the Miller and all that sort of stuff. So, weather conditions are going to be as dramatic as the market conditions, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, that's just where I see it happening is, I don't think, there's really a number. We can't sit here and say, okay, we've got 5,000 now craft breweries in America, when's the bubble? And basing it on the number of craft breweries. I think the real bubble is going to take place with, at what point can the barley producers feed the growth? And that's really where it's going to come from.
Sure. So while we're talking about, the barley and the the hops. What about styles? So obviously, the mega brewers who are making the very pale colored liquid with a little bit of hops and a lot of alcohol, that they'll find a way of getting that alcohol into their beer and the bitterness as well if they can find another chemical that can do that. But the beer styles, so in America, the beer styles are completely different. Your traditional American ales are completely different to what they'll call an ale here in especially the UK, but an ale in Australia is essentially a lager. So what's styles becoming regional around the States now, or are you all mixing it up?
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's
definitely becoming regional. You got Northeast IPAs now that are murky, cloudy, they're hop bursted. The West Coast is still, has their hoppy beers that, are clear. And for the most part are clear. But, you're starting to see people take their own style, their own version of styles and putting their own spin on styles. So I think it is really regionalizing. It's you've got your West Coast IPA, you've got your East Coast IPA, and then you got your Northeast IPA. So it really is starting to everybody's coming out with their own version and their own twist on things.
And when you say IPA, you're not talking about what we in the UK call an India Pale Ale. But you're talking double and triple and ridiculously hopped beers now, aren't you? So I think an IPA here might be at best maybe 40 IBUs, 45 IBUs, and nowhere near. But the IPA at the local is 3.5%. By volume, so that's not even close to being what a traditional IPA would ever have been. But when we talk about American IPAs now, we're going off the scales a little bit more, aren't we?
Yeah, for sure. So I just finished a IPA here, and by the can, the alcohol is 7% by volume, and the IBUs is 70. And really, this is just an IPA. It's not even close to what the brewers are doing here with the doubles and the triples and that sort of thing. But probably the American ales are coming close to your IBUs of your IPAs over there.
Really?
For sure.
It's mad.
Yeah, I mean the wheat beer I'm drinking right now is 45 IBUs, and that's an American wheat. So
it's unreal. I think. Well, a Foster's is 18 IBUs, something like that. I think your Bud Miller Coors is all around be very similar to that, if at all, I guess. So
I think they're about 12.
Yeah. Well, and so that leads us on to yeast as well. Now, obviously, yeast we're never going to run out of, but again, a yeast becoming more regional, or are you buying your specific strains from, your specific suppliers?
Well, really yeast plays a lot with the style. So, it's not necessarily regional. It's what style are you trying to make? But yes, the yeast are, it seems like the West Coast IPAs want to use the Chico strain. So they're using a lot of what's Get Nerdy 001, 1056, stuff like that. But the East Coast seems to be using a lot of the British strains to bring out a lot more of the fruity flavors.
Right.
So you're getting a lot more London strains coming out of the East Coast. Yeah, to bring out that fruitiness, to accentuate the American hops that are known for their citrus characters and their tropical flavors.
Sure. I wish they wouldn't, because the beer that they're making over here at the moment, the ales are just absolutely awful. It was one of the things when I first moved here, I thought, really looking forward to get some real proper, real ale. And I think I had two. I've got, well, it's swamp water. When do we get the clean taste? What's going on? It's just, you do get the rare, half decent one, but they are rare. So.
We'll have to get you over here again and get you some ales and some high high IBU IPAs for you. They'll definitely be palate wreckers by the time you get back over there for you.
Absolutely. What? Sorry.
And your old homeland, Australia, is putting out amazing hops now.
Yeah.
The Galaxy hops and stuff like. I mean, there's your old homeland is starting to put out some really good hops.
Yeah, well, Tasmania was always well known for growing the German strains and the Czech strains better than Germany and Czechoslovakia. But there was another one, name sort of gone away from my brain now, which everybody shunned, and it was the one that was famously grown for Victoria Bitter, and people thought it tasted foul. And in Victoria Bitter, it did, but people didn't know actually how to use it because they were putting it in for a 90-minute boil. If you used it for a late hop or even, a post-boil hop, it was absolutely fantastic. It was one of the nicest hops that I'd ever actually used. So it's about learning to use those ingredients properly as well.
Speaking of beer and hops, what are you drinking over there, Jason?
It's a, shamefully, it's called Galahad. It comes from the supermarket. It's German. I believe it's actually brewed under license for the for Aldi supermarkets, but I'm assured that it comes out of a Czech factory somewhere. So, but it tastes all right, and it'll do for now. I can't have a big night tonight because I'm up for 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's was it 20 to 11 local time here now?
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like a good start over there, anyways.
Yeah. So you were saying before.
I'm supporting local. I'm over here at Lakeland Brewing Company having their wheat. So,
Beautiful.
Support my local brewery.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
So you're talking about getting over there. So Andrea, my wife, wants to go to America for her 40th, and we talked about going into San Francisco and then going down the coast there a little bit. But obviously there's a bit of an elephant in the room there as well. So we're not too sure what the state of the nation is going to be after Tuesday, to be honest. Kind of linking into the industry itself, but as general is what we're hearing over here as devastating as what locals are feeling, without picking a side or being partisan to anything. Is this all overrated, or have we really got something to worry about?
And I think it's overrated personally. This is the reason we have an electoral college. I think the people that are elected to actually elect the president will make the right decision. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Jay Brew, you got any thoughts on that, or you want to dodge it?
Yeah, man, this is a very heated discussion in our household almost daily.
Yeah.
So what I will say is we all understand the media's part, and if you think that they're bipartisan, you're probably living in a fantasy world. There's a lot of things that goes on. There's a lot of truth to a lot of things that people are hearing about. But like Christian said, come Tuesday, the voting public will have their say, and the electoral college of their state will make the final decision. But it definitely has an impact, and I would say that there's a lot of things that will come out positive, but there's a lot of things that will definitely leave scars. This hasn't been an easy process for us, not only here locally, but in the world's eyes. I mean, we're fortunate that we sit and we live in a country that people look at us to say these guys are the world power that need to keep the world peaceful. And whether most Americans want to bear that burden, being a veteran, I've kind of wore that burden for several years on my shoulder, and that's, when you're the world peacemaker, you need to be the world peacemaker. You got to make tough decisions, and it's not easy. And people that are in that position need to take their job seriously. Yeah. Because we see, I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and when you see, images coming back from these countries that are being devastated right now of kids being affected, that just, it truly rubs me the wrong way. I kind of wear my feelings on my shoulder politically when stuff like that is allowed to continue to happen and really being unchecked. So I took that responsibility very seriously as a citizen and enlisted and, served almost 10 years active duty and did what I felt was right. But I just feel like we could have handled some situations a little better than we have recently.
Oh yeah. You all know we've just had the Brexit vote. Well, actually, it's been a little bit more than 3 months, but we're still feeling the fallout from that. Our economy's dropped, I think, 30%, 25%, 30%, something like that. The value of the pound, the old saying, the sound is a pound, is just being flushed down the toilet. Our money is absolutely worthless. Now, we went from the 5th biggest economy to, our credit ratings again flushed down the toilet, and nothing's actually happened yet. We had a referendum. There's still arguments going on about how that referendum's to be taken, whether it's going to be a, is that the will of the people? Well, we had the court now say that no, the referendum's not the stage that will, trigger us leaving the EU. There has to be, agreement through the parliament for that. And it's quite complex, but even though nothing's happened, nothing's physically happened yet, the economy's, flushed down the toilet, and businesses are starting to leave the UK now. So,
yeah. I mean, you want to get into it. It's just one of those, you guys did the Brexit, and, I think a lot of Brits now are going, oh, SH, and I don't think those finish it out the rest of the way.
Yeah.
But, as far as the American presidency, we still have the luxury of, whoever we do elect. We can't impeach it. We're not voting ourselves out of the United States, no matter who becomes president. So, if it does become a disaster, whichever one is still elected, we can sit there and actually hold that president accountable and elect them out of office and impeach them out of office. Either way, of which one wins, and we're still the United States.
Yeah. I think the last few years, anyway, have shown that the president isn't the actual true power. Anyway, if he's not got the houses supporting him, the president can't do much at all. You can't even get a Supreme Court judge nominated at the moment.
Yeah, and that's part of the partisan issues that we have going on, that have, honestly and truthfully, it has affected the entire world. When you can't get a group of people to decide and figure out what the best course of action to handle troubled areas throughout the world, then we end up with people that can't make or don't make decisions, and that's definitely an issue that we've had for quite a few years. But I think the bigger picture of all of it is, that we still have that right, and we still carry that right very proudly as Americans, that we have the right to vote. And there's a lot of countries that their citizens still don't have say. Mm-hmm. So I think it's in general, especially probably this year. I know I've seen a lot of people posting things on social media that they're proud that they're voting for the first time. And, I've seen pictures of 70-year-old people that this is the first time they voted for an election. So I think with controversy like this election has had, there are positive that comes from it, because you get situations like that where people believe so strongly that they want to make that change or that difference one way or the other. But I definitely, the BritX, I probably follow it a little bit closer than probably most people over here, because I'm a numbers guy. I get the economy, and I understand that sort of thing. and I before the decision was made, one thing that I always come back to is in very early in teachings and learnings of economy 101, you're taught how globalization can increase the risk of inequality, and it's very difficult to have a globalized society when where we don't start to get even greater diversification between the top and the bottom. And I don't know what the perfect answer is. I have no idea, but I think that we just need to be careful about how we do things.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the oldest civilization in the world has collapsed. And I know people say that about us. People say that about UK, that they're too big, they're too old, nothing will happen to them. But I challenge you to say, look at Greece. That civilization and that economy collapsed quickly, and we just have to be careful. I mean, and I wish that people understood, and I wish more people would take their right and their responsibility as citizens of whatever country to vote and exercise that right. So it's definitely interesting times for both sides of the pond, so to speak.
What's the feeling over there on compulsory voting? It's not compulsory in the US or the UK. It's compulsory in Australia. Is that ever been broached, or is there ever not? Obviously, politicians don't want compulsory voting because they're well known for voter suppression. But what about within the communities?
Well, I think there is a certain level of compulsory voting. I think people are, it's no doubt that there's a certain level of corruption that goes on in government at all levels, and both sides of the pond. And, it's well known, and people are tired of it. But unfortunately, they don't say anything or do anything or really step up until it's time to vote. And now that it's time to vote, we're having to, right now vote against the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
And, that's one of those. And I can tell you right now too, in even speaking with a lot of, friends and family, a lot of Americans are really embarrassed by just the level of insults and everything else that have gone on with this campaign, because we are the model of the world for what democracy is supposed to be about. And this insults and trials and who grabbed who by what and scandals and everything else, that's not that's not an example of a democratic country and the most powerful, arguably the most powerful country in the world, and what we stand for.
Yeah. Did we lay the groundwork out for you though, with the behavior of our politicians and the behavior of our far right, leading up to the Brexit, do you think?
Yeah, it makes for an interesting conversation. I mean, when we even in our history, when we look back at our past presidents and we see their conduct and their morals and values, I mean, really, I have asked my wife this: where the hell did we go?
Yeah.
How do you go so far from what we had just in my lifetime to where we're at today, to say these people are the best that we have to represent our country? Yeah. Has our morals and values as a nation declined that much that this is where we're at? And
and who's to say it wasn't going on in the past? But the problem is it's now it's out for everybody to see, and and insults are hurled back and forth on an unprofessional level. I mean, that's what it is. It's unprofessional on both sides. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to say that, okay, an election is decided on insults.
Yep. Yeah. And we're almost to the point, who can pick up the biggest handful of mud and sling it the most. I mean,
well, we had with the Brexit, who could get away with the biggest lie. And yeah, we had the most famous one. I don't know if you would have seen it. There, they had their battle bus. The Leave campaign had their battle bus with a big sign all the way down the sides of this massive bus said 350 million pounds per week could be saved to go to the NHS, which is our National Health Service, which was a blatant lie. And the campaign that was using that actually they admitted that the figure wasn't correct, but then found a way to justify using that figure. And nobody took them to task. Not even the media took them to task over it.
Well, other countries now, you have China, you have, now I sound like Trump, China, but you have communist countries using this election going, and looking at the insults and the way that both of these campaigns have been run, going, this is why you don't want democracy. And they're using it.
Oh yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and if that's the example, then what are you going to do about that? And again, so Australia has had 5 prime ministers in the last 6 years. So if a party doesn't like their prime minister, they run a coup and kick the last one out and bring the next one in. We've had politicians blatantly lying to each other, lying to the electorate, and getting away with it. Nobody's called them to task. And now you've got your two over there doing pretty damaging things, like you say, and people are seeing that from non-democratized country, and they go, yeah, bloody hell, I don't want any of that. So it's tough. And then you've got Trump, who, personal thoughts aside, you've got one person making somebody else that in any other race would never get through, but you've got Trump making Clinton look actually normal, if you like.
Yeah, man, that's where we're at. It almost, like I said, it's definitely a point of contention in our household. I can tell you that there's not a day that goes by that it's not discussed, and there's not a day that goes by that my wife doesn't want to pull out her hair. But it definitely, when you have two people that are so controversial, it makes you wonder what was wrong with the rest. We've got a big pool of people that are eligible and qualified for this, the highest position in the land, as we call it. But how do you come up with the two most controversial people that you could put up there for nomination and say, this is who we have? But
was there anybody else on the Republican side that would have been suitable?
Yeah, I can't. I think what the problem the Republicans had is they never really put up a real contender. It almost is like that they just, and I know there's been, kind of kickback and backlash on Trump being the nomination, but it was almost as if the people that they were pushing forward weren't able to compete against him to begin with. It takes a hell of a person to win the nomination.
Yeah.
It's not just about where you've been and who you've known and all of that stuff. You have to be able to win over people. And I just don't feel that the people that they pushed forward were even capable of doing that. And, you get all kinds of talking heads and everything else. But to go back to your statement a little bit further about your media in the UK, I think as a society around the world, we have to realize there's somebody in charge of every organization in the media that makes decisions on what they're going to report and how they're going to report it.
And it's all Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, that's the sad part. It's the majority of it does lie on one person's shoulders, or just a few people. And when people look at the news, we still have people today that believe everything that comes across the news is true. because
absolutely.
that's what we grew up as.
Yeah.
We grew up to believe, Walter Cronkite, when he got on the evening news, that what he said was the gospel. And I think at those times, and like Christian said, stuff like this has been going on for a long time. But I think at those times, the media took, and journalism in general, probably took their profession a little more seriously.
Yeah.
And weren't so influential by who they knew or who they were working with. I honestly, I hold a large part of the issues that we have here on journalism's shoulders. They're supposed to be bipartisan. They're not supposed to be able to be influenced by money or who you are or any of that stuff. And I think this goes, around the world. You guys are obviously dealing with some of the same issues. But what I will tell you that's kind of unique and probably a little bit interesting to you is, Jason, I watch Sky News. That's the news program I watch. I don't watch any of our ABC or NBC. I can stream Sky News on my Apple TV live 24/7 without paying a fee. And that's what I watch. And I know just as well as everybody else, they are biased and they show their bias in their reporting. But it's definitely interesting. And I challenge most of my friends here, even stop watching our news, stop watching our media, go out and watch some outside organization and see.
So I normally watch once a day. My daily routine is, and the news is about all I watch now on the TV anyways. I watch the BBC news in the morning before I go to work, and then normally the Reuters stream, which you can get on the Apple TV as well, which is pretty cool. And then when I come home from work, I'll normally stream the Young Turks and see what they've got to say. So, getting that fair. And as far as the Young Turks are progressive, but they're still partisan. They're more left leaning than right. So you've got to take what they're saying as it is. It's left wing news, but at least it's balancing out all the right wing news we're getting from the other side as well.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best message that I could tell anybody. Find a left and a right channel and watch them equally, and then form your opinion, because that's the best we can do right now, because we really don't have, I call it old school journalism. We don't really have a network that's out there holding everybody accountable equally like they should, which I think is kind of sad, but it is what it is. And when you get $1 million industries like that, you're going to have situations like this.
Yeah. So something that I noticed as well after the Brexit. So I worked in the one of the counting centres for the Brexit, and we could see it happening as it was going, and the mood just completely changed. But from the very next day, we saw people's attitudes change as well, and it was like there was permission given to act differently, if you like. And that moved over into the soccer over here as well. So we were well known for some time. The UK was well known for soccer hooliganism for some time, and that stopped, but it seems to be creeping back. But I noticed on the social network, so you just had a big, what is it, the World Series or something with baseball, Christian. Were you into that?
I've never been a big baseball fan, but I know the history and I respect the history of it, but I'm not a big baseball fan.
So what I'd noticed on the social media was, so you see it now with politics. You'll get your Trumpet ears and you'll get your Clinton ears, and one person will say one thing and then there's just a bitch fight for the next hour. But that started happening as well with the sports and the World Series. And I don't know if that was always the case, or is this a new thing now because of the way that the politicians are acting?
Well, no, there's always been mudslinging, whether it's been in sports or in politics, but it's a whole level with politics.
Christian, your audio is completely dropped out there. I think your plug might have fell out.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The ball. I'm a huge baseball fan, and I'll go ahead and announce my affiliation with baseball. I'm a huge Tigers fan, so we kind of have a tradition, and especially here recently, of winning a few ball games. But I think that it's like anything else. Even as a kid, you're very competitive. You're raised in a very competitive nature, and when you're raised in a very competitive nature like that, you talk a little junk, and that's
Yeah.
just as a fan, I think probably one of the most enjoyable aspects of baseball that I've enjoyed recently is kind of the chatter with the pitcher and the batter. It seems like there's been a little bit more of that going on recently. And when the batter gets the best of them and knocks one out of the park and hits a home run and does a little bat flip to kind of rub it in the pitcher's face, I mean that's what a big part of me. That's a big part of me goes to the field to watch the baseball game. It's like,
Well, I think they've taken that from cricket, and it is a part of cricket. It's called sledging, and they tried to take it out for a little while. I think in the late '80s, early '90s, because it was getting a little bit racist. If you not if you like, it was definitely getting racist between when Australia was playing Pakistan or India in the one day internationals. But aside from that, it was always a big part. It was the bowler and the batsman just taking the piss out of each other and a little bit friendly, but also a little bit, to take them off their game. But it certainly is a part of cricket, and it sounds like it's moving into baseball as well. And it should, as long as it's done in without hate or malice, it should be a part of any sport.
yeah. Yeah, and that's that's a lot of what we've dealt with in any sports here in the United States for a while, especially the professional, basketball and the NFL, and more so probably even in college, is they've kind of take the celebration away and kind of really tied the players' hands to not even be able to really express themselves on the field. And
Yeah.
I kind of get it. I do kind of get some of it, but there's some nuances about the game that fans enjoy, and some of that is to say the batter sometimes win, but more often than not, and statistically, the pitcher wins. And it's fun to see those battles, personally, because some of those hitters and pitchers see each other endless number of times, even in different organizations. So they get it. They know they going up to the plate. This is this guy that I'm facing. This is what I can expect from him, and this is how I'm successful. Um, and probably the average fan doesn't even realize the amount of the amount of strategy that's involved in every situation in baseball. And when you get to see a pitcher that just is able to connect and hit one completely out of the ball stadium, and he's able to simply flip his bat in the air and kind of rub it in the pitcher's face. I
Yeah.
mean, if I'm a pitcher, my what I take away from that is I'm not letting this guy do this to me again.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately it improves the game. But we'll see. I mean, it's good. We've had, these two teams that played in the World Series here were long overdue. I mean, you had the Cubs that haven't done it in 100 years. And you had Cleveland that I believe was over 50 years. So it was great to see two old organizations like that have been around, just a couple of 100 miles apart, take it to Game 7 after what most of us thought was just going to be a complete demolishing of the Cubs. I mean, they were down 3-1 to come back to win the series in the seventh game. That doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to see it happen to the Cubs, I told my wife the other day, I'm by no means a Cubs fan, but this was something special. This was really something special that I'm glad I was here to see. And it'll probably be my daughter will probably be my age before they see him do it again. But like I said, it's as a ball fan, as an American sports fan, it's definitely something interesting to watch.
Yeah. So you're saying about the players not being able to sort of open their mouths or get their point across or anything like that. Now, obviously, Colin, is it Colin Kaepernick? Was that his name?
Yep.
It has what's now when that first happened, um, everybody was saying because he was didn't have much of a career anyway, from what I believe. So everybody was saying that was the icing on the cake for him, and he'll never get a game again. But has it sort of spread more than that now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of I think it's well, I don't know that it's spread, but it's obviously um become more known, if that's the word. But what's kind of interesting with that, and obviously I definitely have my opinions being a veteran, but what a lot of the media isn't reporting is the ratings for the NFL has plummeted.
Really?
They're basically in scramble mode right now, trying to um, figure out what is going on, and to try to bring the sport back to the way it was on viewership. But you do what you're gonna do. But every action has a consequence or a reaction, and you have to be willing to face that.
Yeah.
And if the consequence,
I agree.
yeah, if the consequence or
I
reaction
agree on
is your stock value or your value as a player or personnel is going down, then
Yeah.
that's on you. I support your right to do it.
Christian, what were you saying,
Yeah,
sir?
I said I agree on that. I mean, there's a certain level. You want to have your stance, then make your stance, but do it on your own time. Don't do it on your employer's time. I have a problem with that. You want to go ahead and organize a rally on some time between Monday through Saturday, then you know what, knock yourself out. But you know what, if I have an issue and I take it to and wait until I go to work to make that stance and use my employer's time, my employer's money to make that stance, I can guarantee you I will no longer be employed with my employer.
Yeah. It seems to be that
And
actors and sports ball players and politicians all get a certain pass from that sort of behavior that, like you say, a normal employee wouldn't be able to take, so it's
no, I can guarantee you if I decided to make and use my employer to make a political stance or anything else, my employer will separate my employment. For some reason, the NFL has not done that, and that's what separates these guys. And for what reason, I don't know why. Other than I guess they sell enough jerseys to allow them to continue to play. But my employer certainly would not tolerate and nothing saying that they don't have a valid stance, but to use your employer's time and your employer's identity to do that is, to me, it's not correct.
Yeah. All right, we're just about done. We've been going right on an hour now, so we've done beer, we've done politics, we've done sport. What's left? So we're up to the holiday season for you guys, which kind of starts in October now, doesn't it? You start with your Halloween, then your Thanksgiving, then your Christmas or your Hanukkah or your Kwanzaa or whatever it is now. So any big plans?
It's about family. Spend time with family. I had fun with my one daughter was working Halloween. My other daughter was there with me. I dressed up like an old man and, had fun with that.
Yeah.
Playing with the neighborhood kids. I was a bad grandpa trying to hand out cans of corn and cans of green beans to the neighborhood kids, and while I'm eating Reese's cup through my silicone mask. Ultimately, the neighborhood kids had, I gave them the candy, but it was fun playing with them and watching the parents laugh. It's about having a good time, spending time with family. It's what it's about.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
good
think
stuff. Gabriel, what are you up to?
Yeah, I think it's the same, man. Holidays are about family. Good food, drink a good beer. I'm a big sports fan. That my alma mater is really excelling in the college football scene. So we'll probably travel to a big bowl game at some point, probably some point in December, and taking a good football game and hopefully watch them come out with a win. But that's what our holidays, traditionally in my family's holidays have been: family, food, sports, and a solid drink in the hand. So that's definitely what's in the works here.
Brilliant. All right. Well, let's draw this to an end. Christian, give us your business one more plug. Where can we find all the goodness, all the information about the brewery?
Really, where you can follow us is Swan Brewing Co. CO on Facebook. We do have a website. We do have a Twitter, but you really want to follow us. Follow us on Facebook, swanbrewingco.com, and you can watch us grow. You'll watch the construction of the brewery. Anything that we're doing, any giveaways, we're giving away a lot of beer just to get the feedback from people. In fact, I'm at a local brewery today where I give away some beer to some locals that were part of the last giveaway. It's just fun.
Nice.
It's
just
fun
send some over to England then.
Okay. I'll send you some.
Brilliant.
They'll probably get intercepted by customs, but I'll send it to you anyway.
I reckon. All right, J Brew, where can people find you?
Yeah, man. Kind of the standard for podcast, hopsnews.beer is our website. Look for us at Hops News on anything. You type in at Hops News on Facebook, and you can find us at Hops News on Twitter, and you'll run across us as well. Jason, we didn't ask you, what's your plans for these holiday weekends, man?
Well, not a great deal, because I'm lucky enough to have the kids, and my family's all grown up and doing their own thing. So Andrew and I generally just we go to Andrew's parents for we go there for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, whether they like it or not. I normally cook for mum and dad, and that's about it for us. So we really just try and chill out and not do too much, not get too excited about it's just a nice old rest for us.
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys are looking to try out the
Sorry, say that again.
I said, what's a typical English Christmas dinner?
I think it's the same as everywhere around the world. Even in Australia, we had, on the hottest day of the year, it was a roast dinner, too many meats. I think normally I do 3 or 4 meats, depending who's coming around. Andrea was a vegetarian last year, so I had to do 4 meats and a fake meat meal for her. A lot of potatoes, a lot of vegetables, and we just eat until we can't move.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal. That seems to be the norm. Yeah, if you're when she turns the big 4-0, if you're looking to try anything out other than the West Coast, the Asheville beer scene right now is exploding, and it's becoming a beer destination. So
brilliant.
If you get a chance, or if you're interested in checking out the East Coast, let us know, and we'd love to have you guys out here. But appreciate you hosting this evening, and look forward to doing it again if you're interested.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Now, if you want to catch any of my stuff, it's at skepticsmashtalk.com. If you start there, you'll find links to everything else. So thanks, Christian. Thanks, J Brew, and hopefully we can do this again some other time.
Anytime, man. Let's do it.